interim measure that we have to do. I haven't gone around and lobbied people as to my position. I've certainly sent some papers out and distributed what I think is some logical rationale for it, and I suppose I'm really appealing to people here just based on fairness. I just believe that we can come up with a fairer structure to still deliver the same amount of money. And it is the structure, we don't need to get too much into it, but it is a flat tax, it is effectively a poll tax, it's regressive and it is unfair. It socks the residents, it socks andle business, and it indulges large business. And we're talking about not many big businesses. As you heard from Andrew before, I mean, 52% again, 52% of businesses will pay less. There'll be another percentage, pretty sizable, they're not going to pay much more, and yes, there are going to be some bigger businesses that will pay a little bit more. And I don't have a problem with that, I'm afraid. I think it's important we get quite clear that the structure of it and the formula last year that was set up by Councillor Cashmore and Webster and endorsed by the Mayor was based on $183, and business through its tax credits could basically get that coming back down to $114. So let us be quite clear, it was structured to come back to $114 because they can claim GST and they can claim it as a taxable expense. So everyone, it's not only flat within residents, it's flat across everyone. Sky City is paying $114 net, and so am I, and so is anyone here who's a resident. Bigger business does place a greater demand on council services and transport. Staff have told you that in the reports, and it's in this report here. Staff have also told us that they have a better ability to pay and claim tax credits. And I've just given you the illustration, and to be quite honest, if it was Sky City having to pay $90,000, they can claim basically $35,000 back on tax credits, and their net impost will be $55,000. Sky City have an 8-storey car park underground. Now, if that's not putting more pressure on our system, on our roading system and our infrastructure, I don't know what. It's usually full, and I really don't have a problem with them paying a bit more. Interestingly, Sky City came back and actually said we want to pay more as well, and that's in the documentation. I've given some examples of a transport company, and there are several around, and incredibly good companies, very successful, but sitting on a property worth a capital value of 30 million. About 65 vehicles they have in their fleet, 55 of them are large trucks. They're moving around our system 6 days a week. And are they putting more pressure on our system? Of course they are. Are they putting more pressure on our services? Of course they are. That company with a $30 million CV would have to pay $9,000. Again, they claim the tax credits. They will pay net, the impost will be $5,500. That is not severe for what we are trying to do to actually make, for example, in this case, the transport system flow better and make things better for those trucks and those courier companies to get around, and all the tradesmen to get around and not be caught in traffic, and effectively they will make more money and do better out of a smoothly working transport system. We know the rates is based on 3 levers. The rates, as we know, so we've already worked on that. First initial mayoral proposal was 3.2. We've got it down to 2.4. We've done that part well. The business differential is the other one. We're not messing with that this year. It's sliding down from what's 32.7% this year to 25%. And I think it's now the program is 17 years' time. We're already 3 years into it. And then, of course, that leaves us with the UAGC and the interim transport levy, which are both flat taxes, regressive flat taxes. We've just dealt with the UAGC, and the status quo is going to hold. And yes, I didn't vote for Councillor Casey lowering it. I think it's actually at a nice level now. The proposal up there, to be quite clear for those who just don't really understand or unclear, the general rate formula has it that business is paying 32.7 and residents at the moment are paying 67.3. As we say, the 32.7 is sliding over 18 years. I'm just putting up here this proposal that aligns that general rates formula and making it align with the interim transport levy so that it's fair. It's equal between the business, or equal, I should say the two systems formula are equal between, and everyone is based on capital value. So it would be business and residents are based on capital value. The effects, I've handed something out to everyone here, and you can see what the effects are, because it's getting trumpeted that the mayoral proposal is 2.4, but look at the line, what it says for residents, it's 2.6. So the residents are not going to be paying 2.4 under the present proposal, they're paying 2.6. You can see from the alternative as it's structured there, we can get the residential rate down to 1.5. And Councillor Quack's so eloquently pointing out how just a slight change means a lot for people. I'm saying 1.1% for residents does make a lot of difference. And I'm pointing out also that 52% of the businesses also pay less under this scenario. And again, as staff have reiterated, not many, or a lot of the businesses in the 48% that pay a lot more are not going to be paying a heck of a lot more either. It's only when you get up into the very large capital value. So I'm just emphasising that it's fairer to residents and it's fairer to small business. There's no question about that. The consultation feedback, I'm not going to go through it. Again, I handed a sheet out. It's pretty clear. The majority of residents have believed we should change it. Interestingly, 55% believe the interim transport levy should be based on capital value versus 27% support fixed charge. The residents in 18 of the 21 local boards in their feedback said it should be based on capital value of property. And I just mentioned before, if you look at the LTP from last year and the feedback, 70% of residents thought the business differential should not be changed and shouldn't be sliding. I'm not advocating that, but that's clearly a strong view that we've got out there about these matters. 15 local boards have supported the business paying a greater share of ITL. 3 more confirmed on Monday when they came to present it, and they got it up from 12 to 15. 4 local boards for the status quo and 2 didn't comment. Key stakeholder feedback, I put there, and I've been quite open, there were 13 key stakeholders that were consulted. 9, or I should say all 9 key stakeholders who represent business interests, meaning lobby groups, etc., of course they're against. That's part of their job. But interestingly, some of them, the Chamber, the Employers Federation, really only speaking for big business. They're not actually speaking for the small business, and I'm saying 52% of small business is going to benefit. Are they speaking for them? I didn't hear that. And it's interesting that they seem to be flexible in how they approach that, depending on which meeting you go to. Sky City, interestingly, Ngāti Whātua, Iraqi, Auckland District Council Social Service and Grey Power have all supported businesses paying more. Staff advice, if you read through and go through the workshops we've had, staff advice is that businesses place greater demand on council services. Staff advice is our proposed ITL formula, this amendment better aligns the likely level of benefit higher value businesses receive. They also point out that this amendment provides a better link with affordability. So I'm going to conclude, and I just want to firstly genuinely thank those 16 councillors and those 17 local boards who in December supported our amendment that should go out for consultation, which is better than the year before, because as we know, many of us believe this ITL was introduced a little bit by stealth, buried away in the LTP document, and then came through a bit like Kiwi in the Melbourne Cup at the end, came storming through and got adopted. So I'd like to thank also the council team for the verification of my figures and my analysis. I asked them to do that, and I believe it's really important. I was going to say about Mayor to Mayor Brown, I am a little bit baffled on this one, how you've been so firm on this when I know who voted you in. I know where you got your votes from, north and the south, and the less well-off and the less fortunate. And yet you're socking it to them. But anyway, that's the way it is. And I can say, can you just trust those some of the big business or the lobby groups? As I say, I take my hat off to Sky City saying, yep, we need to pay more. But Mr Barnett has been sending down from the Chamber, and it's been on behalf of the Chamber, has been sending letters, and quite vigorous letters. And the last one here, in our view, the draft ITL proposals are politically driven by councillors looking to encourage residents to vote for them by punishing business. The option of a restructured ITL for business ratepayers based on their property value is outrageous and lacking in logic. I circulated to every councillor a letter I wrote to him, which quoted him from an MBR article that he wrote last year, immediately after the interim transport levy was put in place. The title of the article, Auckland Transport Levy Fails the Test. Auckland Council reported rates would rise an average 9.9% this year with the levy included. That increase, nearly 10 times the rate of inflation, represents an extraordinary and cavalier disregard for ratepayers. Other factors weigh against the levy. It hits low-value properties and smaller businesses harder than wealthier homeowners and larger businesses, since everyone pays the same. The council appears to support the idea that a corner store employing 2 or 3 people will benefit to the same extent as a large warehouse employing scores of people. Clearly that's not the case. That is from the MBR, and I've got one more thing to say, because to me it's about addressing fairness and equity. Just remember last year in the LTP, the original mayoral proposal started at 3.5, and indeed he was lobbying for 2.5. It morphed into 9.9 by the time we settled it. In my ward, the average rate increase was 15.7%. Average rate increase. So if I'm helping the residents by getting them to a small rate relief of 1.1 by going to 1.5% and helping all those businesses, I believe I'm doing my job.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Casey as a seconder.
I'll come in at the end, thanks.
Well, we're not... okay.
Whatever.
I move we put the motion. No, I've got 1 or 2 speakers. Councillor Cashmore.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I've listened very carefully to what Councillor Clough has said and gone through his figures over the past 4 or 5 months since they've been around. And there is truth and there is evidence in them. But this decision is based upon how do you measure what is fair and what is equitable in this situation. We had an ongoing transport problem in this city that had to be solved. The interim transport levy was a step, and initially a first step in trying to address that. Who are the winners and who are the exacerbators in this sort of situation? It's impossible to measure. Just because a business has a high CV doesn't mean that it's contributing to high levels of transport. It may be, but others aren't. Just because a business has huge numbers of employees, does that mean they're affecting huge amounts of public transport networks, our trains and our buses? Where does the costs really lie, and who are the winners? If you take the steel mill down in my neck of the woods, for instance, a couple of thousand employees and 1,000 contractors. They go and buy products from other local businesses that are smaller than them, who in turn buy services from other local businesses, and they all might stop at Pukekohe or at Drury for a sandwich and a Coke. They might go to the local bar on a Friday evening and enjoy the services there, or the local shoe repair guy in a little wee tiny shop to get their shoes repaired. The transflow of gross domestic product funding through the arteries of business is the lifeblood of this city and this country. To measure it in terms of capital value is really a misdemeanour. The interim transport levy, first and foremost, is addressing transport, and it is interim. At the review of the long-term plan, 2017-2018 finalisation agreement, gives this council an opportunity to not carry on with it, because there might be something else in its place, or to review it and to amend it. Yes, there was an outcry when the interim transport levy was firstly proposed, and I said at the time, I put my hand up, I went up to the Mayor's office and said, we need to solve transport, we need to do something on the front foot. So I don't apologise for that. And I've been out in the hustings, the public, explaining the reasons why, and also pointing out the $523 million worth of benefit of 3 years of extra capital expenditure in all of our wards. And the public largely agree with it, and Councillor Clow has just backed that up. The public want us to solve transport. We don't need to tinker with it at this stage, halfway through the process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Penrose.